Hello and welcome to the first episode of Lost Art of Conversations podcast with your host, Joe.
And Paul.
Paul, we're finally here.
We are.
So we've been talking about doing a podcast for a few weeks now. And Paul's actually been doing things on his own for a while. A lot of times being things to motivate others, etc. on social media. And recently, in a conversation while on the phone, because that's how we
as usual,
we decided to kind of just take a jump into this. It kind of goes with the title of this episode, which is Maybe I Will. So first, maybe we can talk about what Maybe I Will is. Paul, you can maybe start us off with that.
I think it's, you know, when Joe and I have been friends for a very long time now, and we always, you know, it was kind of started off as a joke where we would say, you know, why don't you go and do that, this and that, or whatever it is? And we say, well, maybe I will. So it was kind of a challenge to each other and ourselves to go out and just try something new, right? To do something, to just say, you know, why don't you join that team or something like that? So maybe I will. Right.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it kind of works with both of us is because number one, we're both kind of stubborn, and number two, we always kind of like look at a situation where like, well, if that guy can do it,
right,
or if that person can do it,
right,
why can't I do it?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so we've always had that attitude.
That's right, and I think that's where that all stemmed from, and then it all relates to how we set, I guess, the topic of this podcast as well, Maybe I Will, leads into goal setting, So how do I get that thing that I want? How do I go towards the goal that I want to achieve, right? So it's kind of, it all ties in together.
It ties in great, I think, when we came up with the idea to title this episode, Maybe I Will, because at the end of the day, if you approach any situation with can't or won't,
right.
You're not gonna achieve much in your life, right?
Right.
But if you have that attitude and you replace the can't and the won't with even just the slight change of saying maybe I will.
That's right.
Not that you will for sure, because maybe you don't want to take that leap of faith right away.
It starts with maybe.
Yeah,
it starts with, can I do it? Maybe I can. You know what? I'm going to try it.
Exactly.
Right.
And then and the point is that if you start having that attitude change already from I can't, I won't to maybe I will, then the next step is to actually set a goal, right? Because realistically, it's really easy to say you're going to do something, or that maybe I will.
Well, a lot of people love to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't actually start doing it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That's one of the key things.
So the topic of our podcast today is going to be about setting goals. But before we even get into that, like, the actual podcast itself is titled Lost Art of Conversations because, frankly, like, we think that it is a lost art.
That's right. A lot of people love their phones. They love to text. You have a table of people, and their best communication skills are texting each other while they're sitting right in front of each other. You notice that, right?
It is borderline annoying.
Yeah, a little bit annoying when you see that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk to each other using their mouth.
Exactly. Right. And so, and the thing is that it's funny because, Paul and I, like, over the weeks that follow, we're going to be talking about just about anything, right? Whether it's something you might think is meaningful, Paul, or maybe it's something that is meaningless, with something you want to joke around about, have some fun with. But that's what I think one of the good points, or the most important things to remember about friendships is, because, I know that when I pick up my phone, if I call Paul, I can call Paul to have a conversation with him that's a fun conversation where we're both laughing, or I could call Paul about something serious, or if I need advice on something, right? That's the backbone of a good friendship. And I think maybe because of COVID, I think we were getting there anyways with the
Right.
issues with people like unable to be social with each other.
Oh, definitely.
But I think now COVID has just brought that up to another
Oh, yeah. And there
level.
are many ways that, COVID has changed a few things where there are a lot of Zoom calls going on. There are a lot of that type of software used to still communicate with people. And they don't necessarily communicate in person, but there's always a tool for that. And I find that, in my opinion, although those kind of calls, those conference calls are good, you can get your point across. The interaction of the in person is where it's at. I mean, it always has been. You could read people differently. You see their actions in person, live, right in front of you. And sometimes, there's lost in translation when you go to these Zoom calls, or not just Zoom, all those other platforms, right? So
Exactly. And so I think, and with that being said, I also think that I know personally myself, one of the big things about social media is that people want to get that LOL response, right? So you text your buddy, and you say something funny, and personally, I like to actually hear someone laugh out loud, right?
right.
I get more satisfaction out of saying something funny to someone and actually hearing them laugh at the situation, or even just the reaction in person than having a reaction that's on a phone. What do you
Oh,
think about that?
definitely. Yeah,
100%.
no, 100%. Because then, on the phone, a lot of people love to send their emojis and all that. But, the in person reaction is better because then, number one, it's true,
Yeah.
right? Because they could send a laugh out loud or whatever.
It's instant.
It's instant. And you could send a happy face emotion, or emoticon, whatever they call it. But it may not be how they're feeling at the moment. You don't know. It could be fake, right? You don't know what they're doing in a text message.
Yeah.
Right. But in person, the reaction. Okay, they're laughing.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there some of that phoniness, I guess, is taken out of the conversation.
That's
that
right.
what's happening is there, it's live, it's happening, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to be like, there's no analysis, right?
Right.
Like everybody's sitting there, like analyzing like a written message, right? Like,
That's right.
and I'm talking to you, you know what I feel because you can tell in my voice. If I'm upset at you, you can tell. If I'm upset at something, you can tell because my voice is trembling. Whereas, like on the text, right, half the time I don't even know what half of those emojis even mean.
That's right. It's true. It's true. Very true.
So, with that being said, we're going to go through our goal for this podcast today is to go through some things that we think Paul and I both think are important in making sure somebody who's setting goals for themselves considers. And before we even start that, maybe Paul can talk a little bit about what he does on a day-to-day basis, and I could talk a little bit about what I do, because communication is a key in both of our day-to-day lives.
That's right.
And so is goal setting.
Right. And I find that without, I guess if we're talking goals, everybody talks about goals and goal setting and, going after what you want, right?
Yeah.
But what does it mean? You can have a goal, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So you could write it down, you could talk to people about it, but unless you actually do something every day, plan it out, it's not going to get done. Right. So,
Exactly.
and I think a lot of people love to, in terms of goals, they just love the talking about it part. Right. So they talk to all their friends. They say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it is. But when they start to figure out, okay, well, what do I have to do every day? Then they can break it down and then it could be a reality, taking that step. But without that, you're just going to keep talking about it. A lot of people love to just hear what other people have to say about it, and they procrastinate. It turns into that. It turns to procrastination, and they don't end up taking any steps. And then what happens then? They feel bad about themselves, and then they end up doing nothing. And then their goal was just a thought after.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's very important that if you do have a goal, you figure out you reverse engineer it,
Yeah.
right? You
Excellent.
say, okay, here's my endpoint.
Yeah.
What do I need to do every day to get to that goal?
Yeah. Yeah. Steps, right? We have,
That's right.
And so, like, I'm going to go through like what I think are the 7 R's. It's more than 7 R's, but I mean,
there's more, but it's
there's
good.
more. There's more. I made them all R.
It sums up pretty
sounds
well.
good.
what it is.
But I mean, really, I feel, and I think Paul does too, that these are like a foundation to goal setting, right? So if you look at these R's when you're goal setting, I think that it's going to lead to success more often than not. So the first thing that we wrote down, Paul, was reason, right? So like, what's the point, right? Like whenever you're coming up with something that you're going to do in life, it's all fun and to just say, oh, I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm going to do that. But, what's the main reason for what you want to do?
What's the why behind it?
Yeah,
why do you want that goal? Why do you want to achieve that particular outcome?
Exactly.
Right. So that keeps you going, basically.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. That's why it's number 1 on the list. Reason. Why? Why do you want to do it?
Exactly. And it's a starting point, of course. And like, so, we mentioned at the start of the podcast that we were going to talk a little bit about our own goals and how, we look at these items when we are actually setting our goals. And so a recent goal that I've had, after the new year started is that I wanted to lose some weight, right? So it's a typical New Year's resolution.
Yeah, a lot of people make that resolution.
Yeah, everybody. right? That's why all the gym memberships are like trying to scam you into some $1 a day.
Gyms make the most money in January.
We'll talk about gyms for sure during this
that's right.
this whole podcast, right? But I think so. The thing is that so when I sat down though, and I said to myself, I want to lose weight, right? My main reason for losing weight isn't superficial. It's not about just like, I want to look better or I want my clothes to fit better. Right. At the end of the day, I want to feel better. Right. And so I know personally that if I shed 10, 15 pounds, that historically my knees will feel better when I'm walking around.
Definitely.
I go, I'm gonna have more energy during the day. And I'll just feel better about myself as well. So, when I sat down to set that goal for myself, that reason was more important to me than anything that's superficial. And so I think it's important to like really narrow down why you're doing what
right. And you made a good point. So you're doing it for, I think, are good reasons. A lot of people don't, and that's why they stop. But one of the things is, if you're doing it a lot of times solely for the fact that you want to impress somebody else, or if it's anything outwardly other than, internal, say, I'm going to do it because I want to feel better. I want to have more stamina, more vitality, right? That's a good reason. But if you're doing it because you want to impress somebody, or you want to, I'm going to show that person that a lot of times that's going to be a losing compromise.
Exactly.
Right. So you're going to do it for a little bit, and then you're going to stop.
Yeah. Because
your reasons aren't strong enough. Your why is not good enough, in other words, to continue on.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And I like what you just said about your why not being important enough to carry on, right? Because really, like, if it is something superficial, eventually the next superficial thing is just in your life will take over.
That's right.
Right. And
yes.
and then you're just gonna move on to that. Whereas if it's something that's internal, like you're gonna be more focused, and you're going to have that drive to actually
it carries you.
Yeah,
it carries you for the long term, right? Yeah. It's not motivation anymore. It's about, there's something deeper than motivation. Motivation stops. It ends after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Because you can only be so excited, so driven for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
It's the long game that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. And that's again, going back to the reason. What's the point? What's your why?
Yeah.
Right.
So the second R that we want to touch on is research, right? So we thought this was something important to talk about, because a lot of times when people set goals, it's easy to say I'm going to lose 20 or 25 pounds, right? But like, you got to do the research on whether, like, is that feasible? Like,
in the time frame that you've set for yourself.
Yeah, which is going to go on to our next star as well. But like, also just finding like a foundation for what you want to do, right? So, when I was doing my research for me, like I thought, okay, I want to lose about maybe a pound a week, right? So, I started looking into like, how can you really lose about a pound a week?
Right.
Like, what would I have to do, right? And so I did some calculations about, calories burnt and like how much increase of an exercise should I do, and compare that to what I need to do with my calories on a day-to-day basis, so that does this make sense? Like,
and what's funny?
My goal make sense?
One thing I know about you is that you love to research, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And it's that difference that produces a result or doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I find. So,
but we must say, we have to be careful we don't over research, because that's where I think there's a
fine line.
There's a little bit of a difference between me and Paul, and we kind of like offset each other really well. Is that like, I tend to over research, and Paul, I think, does
slightly under research,
maybe under research, or just about right.
That's right.
Okay, so and given that fact, though, if you over research, sometimes it's not good, because then like you may find things that are going to prevent you from starting your goal, because you're like, oh, maybe this is too difficult, right? Maybe you start taking that, maybe I will, changing it back to, I don't know if I can. Yeah, exactly.
And it goes back to what we said before as well, where it's you just keep researching and talking, but you're not doing.
Yeah.
There comes a fine line, like you said, okay, I've done enough research, I got to try it out now.
Yeah.
If you don't try it out, you're just going to keep researching, and it's not going to happen.
Get your toe wet. Get your toe wet.
Put your toe in the water.
Yeah, exactly. But research, we definitely both agreed when we were looking at these points that research is definitely one of the foundations, because you can't just jump into something without knowing the long-term impacts that it's going to have. Like, a lot of people, like, they want to, like fad diets. Right. Yeah. Like, that's one of the big things, right? So like, everybody's
every other commercial.
Yeah. But like, somebody sees on the TV, or they talk to a friend, and they're like, oh, my friend lost like 50 pounds because, they don't eat after 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay.
Well, maybe it's good for them.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what's good for you.
Exactly.
What works for you.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you know what? I know we've been talking about the losing weight goal, because I think that's a popular thing. And a lot of people, again, it's the new year. We're recording this just after the new year, and it's a big topic. And again, I see it on TV. Like I said, every other commercial is lose weight.
Yeah.
Weight Watchers or Noom or whatever it is, and they're promoting all these goals.
Yeah.
These achievable things. But do your own research, right? Figure out what works for you. Have that why, going back to number one reason why, and then start. Right. So I think there's a really, fine line between doing and talking about it.
Exactly.
Right.
And when it comes to our podcast, right, like, and going through these for the goal of our podcast, right, like, the reason why we're doing this is because we've reconnected. Like, I know, like during COVID, like we went months without talking.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
and I remember actually feeling a little awkward the first time I picked up the phone to call Paul.
I said, Joe,
during COVID, because I was like, like, how's it going to be? Like, we used to talk every day.
Oh yeah.
And it's easier in a non-COVID time, right? Because when we were younger, we used to like get together at Tim Hortons, and we could have fun conversations, deep conversations, etc. Right? But like, so like, my reason is like, and I think Paul's is too, is that we reconnected, and we can rely on each other to have these interesting conversations. And and like I said, we want to have people like listen in on our conversations and maybe get inspired to start those conversations again with the people around them as well.
Right. And I think we have, each of us have a that driven mindset where we just want to share what we've learned, what we've experienced, because we've gone through a lot of things,
Exactly.
each differently, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
But we want to share that and talk about it, because
Exactly.
I think that, again, without the art of conversations, it's difficult, because when you share with somebody or share with everyone, somebody gets something out of it.
Yeah.
Right. And it may help them in a different way.
Yeah.
Something may click by what we're saying. It could be something small. They may not listen to anything else we're saying, but they may say, oh, wow, at that point, really, I really like that. And I think that's where we really wanted to, why we wanted to start this podcast, because we feel that it could, we just want to spark that little bit of insight in people.
Exactly, 100%, right? Because at the end of the day, like, even, I'm sure at some point in one of our podcasts, we'll talk about like some of our vacations that we went on together, etc. And like, people post stuff on Instagram, whatever, they get a glimpse of something, but you're not getting really like anything out of that other than like that moment in time maybe someone had a laugh, etc.
What's the bigger picture?
Right? What's the bigger picture, right? And then with research, like a lot of that's, I give 100% to Paul. Paul's really into the tech. He's done his research on what we need to do. What we need to do to get this thing going, right? So he's done that research. And then that leads us to the third R that we're going to talk about, which is realistic, right? So it's so important for the goal to be attainable, right? Reachable, right? Definitely. Realistic, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can set massive, massive goals, which is great. I mean, you hear it a lot, shoot for the moon, and you may, what's the saying, John?
I have no clue.
I can't think of it right now, but you may set that goal so high that it becomes overwhelming, and you don't know where to start or what to do. And you just, again, it's one of those things that makes you stop because it's too big. Maybe big, but if you, again, break it down into smaller, realistic portions, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week, this hour, this minute? Then that becomes more realistic.
Little successes, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Right. That provides the foundation, right? And the thing is that with that being said, with even our podcast, we have like a life outside of this. We both have families. We both have careers going, right? So realistically, we're not going to be putting out a podcast every day. We know that, right? But see, and in doing this though, Paul and I, we sat down and we know that would be an unrealistic goal to set in regards to this podcast. So instead, we're thinking, maybe we get to one a week, at the beginning, maybe it's one every 2 weeks, right? And we're going to be doing some of the other R's that we're going to be talking about to see whether or not that goal is changed to more often or less, depending on how everything goes, right? And that's how you should be doing everything when it comes to goals.
I mean, I think the unrealistic part is, and I've done it before myself. Again, we're going back to working out and exercising because I do that pretty much every day. But at the beginning, I said, I'm going to run 30 minutes a day. I'm going to lift weights the same day. I'm going to do back and biceps and all that. I'm just going to do that every single day. I'm going to do something different. And what ends up happening is at the end of the week, you kind of said, well, I don't know if I can keep this pace up. And what happens, you get discouraged, you get, unmotivated, and then you just want to stop. And I stopped for a bit because I said, I can't keep this up. How am I going to do this? There's no time. And you come up with excuses after. And that's not a good thing. But if you say to yourself, okay, if I'm going to get into a routine, I'm going to start off where I'm going to do it for, maybe twice a week. Right. And I'm only going to run 5 minutes on the treadmill or something like that. But you build up, right? You start off small and you build it up. If you start off big, you're going to slow it down.
Exactly.
And that's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's very important to have that realistic daily goal or mission on what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And in doing that, you have to kind of have a good realistic view of like where you are in your life and like your surroundings, because when you set these goals, right, it affects the people around you as well, right? Like I said before, we both have families, right? So like for me, for example, I set a goal for myself that I want to lose some weight, and so I know that realistically I'm not going to be able to get to a gym. Okay. One of them is the time factor, right? Because I just don't have the time in the day to do it. And the other factor, Paul, is what I call beasts in heat. Okay. So like the one thing that drives me crazy about going to the gym is going to the gym and seeing these people that like are running around like a beast in heat is what I call it. Like the last time one of the last times I went to the gym, and I said to myself, I'm not sure this is going to be for me. I'm on the treadmill, I'm doing my thing on the treadmill. I look over and I see this guy like running like with another guy perpendicular to his body on his shoulders.
Come on.
and he's running at the gym with a guy on his shoulders. And I'm looking at him.
Was it for Instagram?
And so like the thing is that like I'm trying to do my thing on the treadmill. And I guess partially it's my fault because I got distracted.
That's distracting.
But at the end of the day, like, did you pay $600, $700, $800 to go to the gym so you could carry somebody on your shoulders?
Hey, like, well, you know what? Right? All the power to them.
All the power to them. But the reason why I call it beast in heat is because if you're out in the jungle or in the forest and there's a beast that's in heat, you don't want to they're capable of anything. You don't want to go anywhere near them.
That's right.
Right?
Keep away.
So anyway, I can't do that, right? It makes me nervous, and then it gets me off of my goal, right? Like I don't even want to be there anymore, right? So for me, my thing is I'm going to increase my steps every day. That's what I've been doing. I looked at like, okay, how many steps do I take in a day? And now what I do is I increase my steps. How do I do it? I try to increase my steps when I'm in the living room and my kids are watching TV and I still want to talk to them and watch some TV with them, but instead I'm walking around a little bit, moving around a little bit. If I'm talking on the phone with somebody, I'm moving around. I don't sit down to talk to them, right? And I've been hitting about 15,000 steps a day.
So Joe's been sending me pictures of his step count.
Yes, I have.
And I look at mine and they say about, 5,000-6,000 for the whole day. And I thought I've been walking around a bit, trying to get my steps in. He sends me a picture, 20,000 steps.
Yeah, so, okay.
Like, I don't understand.
But see, this is the thing, right? Like, and this is
how do you do so many steps?
But this is where we have to talk about, like, again, realistic, right? Like, the way Paul's doing things for him works for him. Right. And the way
I'd like more steps though.
Right? No, I mean, and the things I do work for me. Right. Yeah. And so you also got to make sure that like you don't like get off track based on like what other people do. Right. Like I know I can't do what Paul does. When I open up Instagram and I see like Paul like with doing the weights and doing all these things and the push-ups and stuff, I'm like, I can't, that's not me. I can't do that, right? So I gotta create something realistic for me. And Paul, like while he does pace, he probably won't do what I'm doing, right? So so we set realistic goals for ourselves.
Yeah, the goals have to be obviously they have to be for yourself. Yeah. A goal could be to help others achieve their goals as well. But things like when it comes to the comparing, so Joe's got 20,000 steps, I'm going to get that too. Yeah, you could do that. That's fine. If that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But if not, have your own goals. Yeah, do your own thing. I did 5,000-6,000 steps. I'm okay with that.
That's good for me.
Yeah, that's good for me because I have other things that I am more focused on than that. Exactly. Right. So it's all personal.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So that leads us to our next R, which is record, right? So
definitely
record, which is the importance of writing it down, right? Like I don't know exactly what it's called, but I do remember someone saying or reading somewhere that there's people who at a very young age, they like have something like a bulletin board in their room and they like either post pictures or they write things down on the bulletin board of like goals that they want to actually reach in their lives, and they want to be able to see it on a daily basis when they wake up. It's in their room. That's a lot where they spend a lot. I don't know exactly where that came from, if there's a specific name for it, to be honest with you. But when I hear that, I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah. I'm like, it
kind of reminds you what you have to do, because if it's not written down, it's just going to leave your mind.
Exactly.
Right. So you may remember it, but then your mind's a funny thing. If you're not focused on it, you just won't remember it. Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
also, I know we keep going back to working out, but every single workout I write down for myself, I write down what I did, how many reps, how many sets, what exercise it is, so that I can compare it to what I did, what I'm going to do next week. Because in my opinion, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, or how to improve unless you know what you did before.
Exactly.
Right. So if you said, I did 10 minutes on the treadmill last week, well, this week I'm going to do 15 minutes. Right. Yeah. So it's a kind of a self-comparison to what you've done and where you want to be.
Yeah.
And again, it's progress.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the main thing of achieving that goal, progress.
Exactly. Excellent. And the thing is that, like, even recording, like for my example, I've gotten into recording what I eat, right? So every day now, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, I'm recording what I eat. I use an app for it. And the thing is that it's helping me because of the fact that, a lot of times you go through on a day-to-day basis and you're having things to eat, and you don't even realize like how many calories something is, right? And sometimes you just eat to eat, right? Some people, get bored, whatever. And so when you're writing it down, you're recording it, you're especially because, like, so you've done all this work with your exercise. You've done all this work with, like, your steps. You've done all this work with watching you eat, right? When you write it down, you're like, wow, I just burnt this many calories. Do I really need that chocolate bar? Right. Do I really need to have that second slice of cheese in my sandwich, right?
It's kind of a self-coach, right? It kind of tells you, okay, hey, why are you eating that chocolate bar? You just, you ate this many calories already. So you shouldn't do that. And it kind of stops you, right? And it's, it's definitely a good thing to keep track. And that's with anything. It's not just, exercising, eating, all that, which we're talking about, but it's everything you do, right? So you want to improve the way you speak. Well, maybe mark down, keep a journal on, what conversations did I have today? How did I react? How did I act? And then next week, maybe I'm going to be a little bit better.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe I'll do a bit. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do a little bit better. In those conversations. Maybe I'll talk to somebody I don't know. Right. So keep track of it in a journal. Write it down. What did I do? Where was I? How did I feel? How did I act? What can I do better? And then read it over and try to do better next time. And again, make that progress, right? If you hadn't written it down, you wouldn't know what you did. You may remember, but I think it's a visual thing, right? You see, okay, I've made this progress. This is what really happened because I recorded it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I think that's very important.
And especially because, one of the things that we're constantly talking about these days, especially with mental health, et cetera, is, having a positive mindset, right?
Right.
And so a lot of people in general, because of the things that have been happening around in the world, have become very negative. And so it's easy to say, I'm going to change. I'm going to be more positive, right? But it's not something that just happens overnight. No, and so things like, recording it and how you reacted to certain things, or like the way you're talking to people, et cetera, is really important, because if you're going to say that you're going to approach situations in a more positive way, but you actually you don't keep track of that, right? It's important to keep track of the failures as well as the successes, right? Because, like,
those are the biggest things to keep track of,
right? Because how many times you just, like, you're recording what you're doing, and if you don't record that, hey, you know what, on Tuesday I didn't do the exercise I was supposed to do, or I overate, or whatever. Well, what led to that? Right? Like, there could be a situation that led to that. And with that being said, like, I realized as I was setting my goal, which is going to lead us to the next few R's, that, part of my goal of like hitting 15,000 steps every day was a little unrealistic because of the fact that there were going to be days that I was just not going to hit that mark because of the situation I'm in, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
whether it's a weekend whether it's like I'm doing something that is not going to give me the time to be able to do it. So I don't want to set like this goal of doing it every day when there's things that are out of my control that will prevent me from getting those steps, right? Because the fact that I don't have time because of other commitments, sometimes those are things you just can't change.
Yeah, and it's obviously the day-to-day life, what we do every day will somehow in one way or another affect, our mission, our goal of, that certain task we want to accomplish, but you got to make time for it. It may not happen every time, but at least you've recorded it and said, okay, I missed today. I'm not going to let that happen again. And I'm going to improve from there.
Beautiful.
Right. Whereas if you didn't remember or write it down, it's just going to lose track of everything and you're just going to drift every day. Right. So that's, a really good, thing to do.
And along with what we said about the research, like making sure that you don't get obsessive about it as well, right? Because like some people, for example, especially when it comes to like weight loss, is they want to check that scale every day, right? And they want to record their weight every day, right? And the thing is that like that's unrealistic. That obsessiveness is going to lead to you feeling like you're not hitting your goals, and then you're going to end up stopping.
Progress takes time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
I mean, you may be doing something for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and you just get little results. But at some point, those little results become massive. Just it seems like it's overnight, but you've been working up to it. It's kind of an exponential increase on a graph, right? So it's kind of you slowly build it up, and then all of a sudden, the success just skyrockets, and then other people look at you and say, "Well, it happened overnight." Well, no, it didn't.
No,
it was every single day for the past months,
because they
years,
see the end product.
Whatever it is. Right?
It's the end product.
It's the end product. Everybody loves the end product, but they don't realize what went into that end product. But if you do obsess over it every day, as Joe said, you may get to the point where it's just not realistic. It's overlooking at something. It's over detailing what's going on. And I didn't hit that scale number that I said yesterday. I was going to lose 5 pounds and I didn't do that overnight. Well, it may not happen overnight. It may take 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe write it down every week.
Yeah.
Maybe. Right. So be realistic in your recording as well.
Yeah.
Or in your tracking.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're recording it, that leads us to the next R. And when we were doing this, we kind of put 3 R's together. And the 3 R's that we put together were review, revisit, and reconsider. Right? Because, how often should you check your progress? How do you do it? Is it okay to reconsider and change or give up completely? Because at the end of the day, there's going to be some goal. Like you're not going to reach every goal, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you say, me or Joe and I, we're I got to become a basketball superstar.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not realistic. Right?
Well, it's not realistic because I don't have the physical makeup.
Wow, that's another. And neither do I.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's exactly what you said, right? So you kind of have to maybe it's not something for you, right? But that's last resort, I think. Right.
And so like I think this goes with our podcast as well, because as we go forward, like I said, we're gonna review our goal of like trying to get like a podcast out every couple of weeks, revisit it, see if it's doable, whether or not we could do it more often, reconsider. Maybe after a few weeks of doing this, we say, well, you know what, maybe this isn't going to work out. Like, we thought it was a good idea, but
a lot of things are trial and error.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You got to see, maybe that doesn't work. Well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try a different approach.
Because it's okay to fail.
Oh, definitely. You have to fail
to
learn.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, this is the thing, right? but I think that a lot of that's been lost with like, I mean, I think we went through the generation where like our parents allowed us to fail.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I think that us or we as parents may be a little bit less reluctant to allow our kids to fail.
Yeah, everybody's what do they call it? Coddled. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Where it's we don't want anything bad to happen. We don't want it. We want them sheltered. Everybody's sheltered. Like, there's no winner. There's no losers at a soccer game anymore. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody won because they participated.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing. Right. I mean,
I don't like, and coming from I'm a teacher. My background is I'm a teacher, and we see that a lot in school, right? Like, a lot of competition has been removed from school. I remember when I was in school as a kid, we used to have Mad Minute. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And like, if, or spelling contests, right?
Yeah.
And some people are just not good at spelling. Some people are just not good at math. Yeah. Some people can't run as fast as others.
Right.
Right. Like, you're not going to be the best at everything. It's reality.
A sad truth.
Yeah.
But but it's absolutely
But it doesn't
true.
have to be a sad truth.
No.
That's the thing.
A lot of people will be listening to this saying, no, I could do anything. Yeah. I could do everything. I could do it. Okay, try it out. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And I applaud you. Do it.
Yeah.
And prove it to yourself, right?
But I disagree with you in what you said, though. You said it's a sad truth.
Well, it makes
I guess it's a sad truth because it makes people sad to realize they can't do everything. Yeah. But you shouldn't be sad. It's the truth.
I think everybody finds what they're good at. They explore it enough. Yeah. They trial and error it. They have to fail because honestly, if you don't fail, you're not going to know what you can't do.
Yeah.
And you're not going to want to improve because if everything's succeeding, everybody's succeeding at everything they do, and the first time, well, what is that? You're not going to learn anything, right?
Well, and we have limited resources.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we have limited resources, and you want to be able to use your limited resources and doing something that makes sense, because otherwise you run out of those resources. They're limited, right? Yeah. So if you're taking those resources and putting it towards an unattainable goal or something that you think, oh, I could do it too, just because my neighbor does it, right? Well, then you're wasting your time. You're wasting your resources, time being one of them, and you could be using other resources as well.
Yeah. Now, if you feel strongly that, I could do what that person does, then do it. That's what I think, right? Because I think, I don't want to put down the fact that, we can't do any, sometimes, we're limits. We're limited.
Of
There's
course.
limits on us.
Yeah.
But you have to at least try it to realize that for yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't try, you're never going to know. Yeah. Maybe you are the best at what that task is, or that goal, or whatever, that career, that anything. But without trying, you won't ever know.
Exactly.
Right? So, but realize it for yourself.
Yeah.
Do it. If you fail, well, don't just stop.
Yeah.
Try it again. Try a different approach. Do something a little bit differently. Make sure you exhaust all your possibilities, all your routes before you say, okay, you know what? Maybe I got to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But I think that is at the most, after the most struggle is when you should, really reassess, okay, maybe I got to do something else or try another.
Yeah. And I mean, if you have the other foundational piece that we talked about, which is the reason for doing the goal to begin with, right? So if the reason wasn't superficial to start, right? And you attempt it and you fail and then you attempt again, whatever, right? Then that's fine. I think that, and that's why we talked about reason at the beginning, because, everybody is like, oh, well, I'm just going to do it because I'm going to do it. Well, no, like, what's your reason for
what's your reason?
Yeah.
And I listened to a bunch of podcasts and, videos and all that motivational stuff. And one of them was, if you have a strong enough why, if you know what you're going to do and you have a strong enough why, you'll figure out how.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't, and you start with how are you going to do it? How am I going to achieve that goal? well, it may seem overwhelming and you may stop. But if you have that strong enough why do you want to do it? You know what it is and why you want to do it. You'll just figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
You'll talk to the right person. You'll meet the right coach or mentor, and you'll just find a way to do it. But again, going back to that number one reason, if you don't know why, it's very difficult. It's try it out and see, right? You'll know right away if it's not the why you're looking for, because you will stop doing what you're doing.
Exactly. So we're getting close to the end of the R's. One of the second last R that we kind of thought about was reward/result, right? Because at the end of the day, most people, if they're setting a goal for themselves, okay, it's because they're going to be attaining something at the end, right? Whether it be a reward of some sort, whether it's an internal reward or external, or they're looking for a specific result, right? So, what is that reward? Like, when are you going to be getting that reward? Are you going to be getting like results or rewards in between, or is there just an end reward or an end result that you're looking for when you're setting your goal?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing as well, because you want something at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You want that, I'm going to achieve that goal. What am I going to get out of it? What satisfaction do I need? And I think that's a driving factor as well, because if you don't know that either, it may not be a strong enough goal for you to go towards, right? I mean, what are you getting out of it, right? Whether it's knowledge, growing as a person, becoming more wise, whatever it is, there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
Because if there isn't, it all goes back to, when you don't know exactly why you want to do something, you're going to just be drifting every day, aimlessly drifting. What should I do today? You wake up in the morning, you say, well, what do I have to do today? Let me see. Well, I think you should know already what you have to do. If you have that goal and that drive, you're going to just get after it. You're going to do it, right? But if you don't, it's kind of not a great way to live your day, right?
Exactly.
You just say, what should I do? Joe, what should I do today? I don't know. Let me figure that out. That's not something that I do anyway.
Yeah, when it comes to this podcast, right? Like when Paul and I were talking about it, like we never really thought about getting anything at the end, monetary or anything like that. Like we're the type of people, like our reward, well, I know personally, my reward is having my voice heard, right? Like,
100%.
like somebody like saying to me, you know what? I heard you talking about this and I found that rewarding. So somebody saying to me they found something I did rewarding.
That's right.
Is rewarding to me.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's a good why.
Yeah.
That's a strong why, right?
Yeah.
You want to help other people. You want to inspire other people. Well, that's a good why to have, I think, right?
Yeah.
Especially, when you're younger. I mean, now we're a little bit older and we've been through a lot of experiences. But when you're younger, it's all about you. What can I do? What can I do? What can I get? But as you get older, there's a transition stage where you want to share and help other people as well,
Exactly.
right? So I think that's, I guess, where Joe and I are at right now. And for us, I think that's a great why, right? And I think, that will keep us going in one form or another, whether it's podcast, whether it's, posting or talking to people in the community. I mean, Joe does it every day in his school. He's mentoring all the time, his students, right? So I think that's just something that will keep us going forward.
Yeah,
right?
Excellent. Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that like, someone might say, well, you guys are just having conversations. You're two guys having conversations, right? But the thing is that like I look at it, so like for example, like for the longest time I watched a show on TV called Impractical Jokers. Right? And it's a bunch of guys
seen it a couple of times
who for the longest time they played pranks on each other, and then one day they're like, why can't we just make a TV show about this?
Well, there you go.
Right. And people watch. They're in like the 10th season, right? Yeah. And so like, okay, obviously like it's a TV show. They're getting monetary gain from it, etc. But you know what? The thing is that like they did something where people are watching friendships and how people like the art of the friendship, right? And like people joking around and pranking each other, etc. And you know, I sat down and I watched that show with my kids and my wife, right? And we laughed about it. We're like, wow, this is so funny. Like, look at what they did, or look at what this guy did, right? And you kind of like you see that, and you can kind of compare some of the things you do in your own life to that, right? And so there was a point to that, right? Like maybe at the beginning, or somebody might just look at that and say, wow, this is just a bunch of goofballs and they're just like making jokes, or they're pranking each other. Now it's a TV show. But really there is some meat on that bone, right? Because
if there wasn't, it wouldn't be
successful.
How many seasons?
Yeah, like 9, 10 seasons.
Yeah, so that's what it is, right? There's something there.
Yeah, there is something there, and people are looking for it, right? They found a blend of, hey, this is a friendship, and then people are looking for, you know, some slapstick comedy, etc. Right? Yeah. And then, so that leads us to our last one, which is reflection, right? Definitely. So looking back, the reflection obviously happens at all different time periods when you're doing things. It doesn't have to be just at the end, but I think reflecting on goals that you either failed at or were successful at is just so very important, because otherwise, like, how do you set your next goal? How do you do the next thing on your list, right? You have to be able to reflect, and when you reflect, one of the most important things I think to reflection is honesty. Yeah, right. Like you have to be honest with yourself. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I've read a lot of books as well on again, you know, the Tony Robbinses, the Robin Sharmas, all that. And, you know, they all say the same thing, you know, at the end of the day, look back at what you did that day. You know, how did I do? When I talked to that person, was I nice? Was I bad? What did I say? Did I say something that was positive, negative? How did I act? What did I do at dinner time? What did I eat? Did I follow through with what I said I was going to do today, or did I not? And that's just a self-reflection at the end of each day, so that you know, okay, well, tomorrow I'm not going to do the negative thing that I did, or I'm going to continue doing the positive thing that I did. And again, write it down, right? So write down what you did good, what you did bad, and learn from it. And I think it's definitely an important thing to have. And I think a lot of us do that. We're sitting there lying in bed and we say, oh, what did I do today? Why did I say that? What did I do here? Right? And I think that's a big thing to daily improvement.
Of course. Right?
Because you can't improve what you haven't reflected on.
Exactly.
You really can't.
Right.
And
that's the thing, right? Like, so, and even like in my profession, like teaching, right? Like, I constantly tell my students, like, you need to like reflect on your own learning, right? What kind of learner are you, right? Because if you don't know what leads to successes in your learning, right? Like some people are able to sit down and they can learn just by listening. Sometimes you have to write things down, right? So like, but unless you do that assessment, and that's some of that reflection on yourself, you can go on for a long period of time and you won't succeed at things. And one little change, right? Just taking that time to reflect and say, hey, what went wrong here can lead to such a big change, right? And it's so vital, right? And I think sometimes what happens is people get lazy, and after the goal is like either you're successful or you fail at something.
That's a big one, yeah.
You're just like, well, I'm putting it aside.
Yeah, it's like I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm done with it. What's the point of reflecting on this? I didn't get it done. Or what's the point of reflecting on it? I did what I had to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, what could you change?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. What can you change, and how can you get better? I mean, I achieved that goal. Okay. Are you going to be comfortable and not do anything now? Or are you going to, and a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Even in my industry, I mean, they become successful and they, they get to a point where it's, I don't want to do anything anymore. and they're still young. And I'm looking at them saying, well, I'm going to work forever if I have to, if I can, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to do something, you want to hit the next goal.
Yeah.
You want to find the next thing that you could achieve, right? So I think that it's very important to, I guess, raise the bar once you do that. And the only way to do it is saying, okay, well, how can I do it better, right? Reflect on where you, whether it's the last 10 years, you can reflect on your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's past. You can say, okay, so these past 5-6 years, I've done this. Now I'm going to do this.
But don't be obsessive.
But don't be obsessive.
Exactly. That word obsessive keeps coming up, right?
It does. Because if you're obsessive, then that's another slew of issues that you could have. But definitely that's something.
So with that being said, we went through the different things that we think are a foundation to setting goals, and that was our goal for this podcast, right? And so we went over explaining what our mantra is of maybe I will for this session that we went through. And, I think moving forward for anybody who's listening or watching at home, I think we're going to really have a mix of things we're going to talk about, right? Like when I think about where we're going to go with this, I think about, having some fun with it. Like I know like next time we get together, we're going to be talking about some annoyances that we have on a day-to-day basis, right? It was hard to get down to just 5 things, believe me,
yes,
right?
Yes,
but like, I mean, so, and sometimes maybe we'll talk about, things like, for example, that are happening at that time.
I think, to be honest,
events.
just anything in general, because our daily lives are very dynamic and things happen. And Joel calls me every other day and say, "Hey, you know what happened today?" Right? So
it's crazy,
and maybe we might share that with you guys, right? Yeah. But it's definitely, we're excited. I think.
Yeah,
it's
I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I think that. As the first podcast touching on what we think is very important, goal setting, which we'll probably talk about again and expand on in future episodes. But I think that as a foundation to start, I hope you guys like what we're saying, but I think, I think you guys will get something out of it. And
I think what I was going to say is that, like, a lot of people sometimes, they just like, drive to work. They want to listen to something, or, walking, they're walking outside, they're running on a treadmill, etc. They want to lose themselves. So we want you to do is we want you to lose yourself in our conversations.
That's right.
Right. So,
and maybe spark conversations of your own.
Exactly. So with that being said, thanks for losing yourself in our conversations. Till next time, I'm Joel.
I'm Paul.
We'll see you.